What's up, everybody? Jensen Cummings here. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. Today is Best Served Podcast 230. We're talking serious brewing with Hollywood celebrity status with the one and only Andy Divoff. This is Best Served Chilled, episode 1. Best Served Chilled, we focus on craft brewing pros, discussing their inspirations, techniques, and of course, their beer. It's all about those stories that we want to be here to tell. Beer is truly a human experience, and I'm really excited about that. So no further ado, I want to bring on Andrew Divoff. Andrew, good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jensen. Good to be here, brother. Thank you.
All right, Three Marm Brewing, we're going to get into that a little bit for sure, because you have an amazing operation out in California, and I want to touch on that. But of course, I don't want to bury the lead at all. Anybody who's seeing you now is go, wait a minute, that's the guy who was the villain from that one movie, that one show from my childhood. We all have that experience. And so I just wanted to kind of touch on that for a second. For me personally, I remember moments of Air Force One. I remember A Low Down Dirty Shame. Love that movie. Even Hunt for Red October were some of the memories that I kind of had. And one of the things I want to touch on, and I'll kind of let you take the floor, but I want to navigate into, is there's a lot of celebrities that attach themselves as an investor, as kind of leveraging the brand to different businesses. You know, this is nothing new. But for you, you really fell in love with the brewing and got active in the beer side of it. So I want to really dig into that a little bit. But before that, kind of for the 7 people out there who don't know you, give us a little bit of your backstory.
So my backstory, a long story short, born in Venezuela. I lived in Caracas, Venezuela until I was 10 years old. My mom's Irish American. My pop is Russian. And so I lived in Venezuela until I was 10 years old. As I said, then came to the States. My folks divorced, came up to the States, and was kind of a little bit of a wayward soul kid. So I did an interview. Apparently, I had an accent still, my first language being Spanish. And upon a sort of an interview with the principal of the school, he felt I may not be I might not be as smart as I needed to be to progress. At that point, I believe it was I would have gone into the 5th grade. And so I was held back a year. And so that stigmatized a kid for whom languages became an obsession. I now speak 8 to a greater or lesser fluency, degree of fluency, and so that propelled me into sort of, I was always a quiet kid, very reserved because of that sort of stigma, and yet when I would go to those, well, we all know those parties, those high school parties where the folks are away for the weekend, wink, wink, we're going to have a party, and it would be at those after a couple of beers that my sort of hidden personality would come out, and I would do sort of stunt tricks. I would, I remember this one house, 2-story place, had carpeting on the steps. So of course I tripped and rolled down the whole stairs and then popped up. Everything's cool. So I was a bit of a ham when it came to that. That of course led to getting into the acting aspect of it. Started with the stunting, and then worked into the acting because not a whole lot of my fellow actors have that acumen for language. I did. I used it. I got to play characters, different characters, different languages.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. I love that. You were so driven by something that was put forth as an inequity, a shortcoming that you had, you had that bravado to say, I'm going to push back against that ended up becoming a mainstay of the way that you communicate as a person and as an actor. See, those are the things. I love this stuff. I love that. And I know when we get into brewing, you're going to be expressing yourself in a similar way, in the way that you contextualize communication. Because look, an actor, a chef, a brewer, you are a communicator, pure and simple. You have just chosen a certain medium to go about that communication. I'm a big believer in that. Now I understand why you communicate the way that you do. This is great. This is going to inform our conversation heavily.
Thank you.
So I really appreciate that. All right. Now,
not at all.
Brewing. All right. Yeah. So you're in Hollywood. You are a mainstay of movies and television through the 90s into the early 2000s. Right? You have that intense stare and you have the accents. I love that. when do you find brewing? When does that become something that's not just, again, you're not just attaching your name to a business, you're in it, right? You're in it. So brewing, give us that. When did that come about?
I would. So this had to do a while ago, back in 2013. I was invited out to Denver, Colorado, and I met the person who was to be my mentor and somebody who is still a friend and with whom I communicate, and especially about beer and what do you think about this and maybe adding that, and what about these adjuncts, say like habanero peppers, for instance, where would they fit? And so I went out to do a benefit. I was invited. They had come up with a wine called Jens Malbec. And I was coming out to pour for charity, which I like to lend my time and whatever cachet I have to that, to causes that benefit those of us who may be on harder times, may need a bit of a hand up. So I'm always raring to go for those. So I went out there, and I must say I put that wine. I remember I put the wine to my lips, expecting not something ultra great, but anyway, it was disappointing. It was I like to say I wouldn't put it on salad. I wouldn't offend a salad with it. But the very cool thing was I met great people. We raised some money. I was lucky enough to meet Adam Drager, who was the brewmaster at that time at a chain, a franchise of restaurants, Indian fusion called Yak and Yeti. And he would come up with these amazing beers. He came over to me and he said, the Wishmaster needs to have his own beer. And I laughed. I thought, oh my, wow, that's funny. And he said, no, man, I'm serious. And he introduced himself, told me a little about who he was and what he does. And so I followed up, I think it was about a month and a half later, knowing that a convention was coming up, one that I love to attend out in Boston, no longer, I believe, defunct. I think this COVID sort of helped put it away, but it was called Rock and Shock out in Worcester, Massachusetts. I called Gina Migliozzi. She's a friend, and I asked, hey, you know what? I've come up with a beer recipe. A friend of mine is helping me brew it. He's going to brew it, and I'd like to bring it out to Boston. It was driven out, so we couldn't fly it, we couldn't send it, we couldn't ship it. So it was my beer. I had to take it out. A friend of mine, Ron Crawford, ended up doing that hard task. We get it out there. I was hoping to raise $500 for charity. Gina allowed me to pour it. We raised close to $1,500. I supported my charity at that time, and it still continues to be Smile Train. And she put hers toward the Pat Brody Cat Shelter and the Dave Brokey Up and Coming Artist Fund. Wow. So I was totally amazed, and a few of the William Forsythe, a good friend, was there. Jeffrey Combs was also there. Yes, wonderful actors, and they were among the first to taste the gin Celebrew. So it was sort of just a tip of the cap to the Wishmaster, to the gin, and so all that while back, Adam had asked me, he says, what's your favorite beer? And I said, I love Duvel. I love the Duvel. I still love that beer. And I said, I would like that body, and it needs to have roasted habanero in it and Persian lime as a nod to the gin and to his heritage. And as it turns out, all limes on the planet are Persian limes. The mother plant came out of Persia. And so that's kind of cool. That was informative. And speaking of being informed, I mean, man, there's nothing like, the history and sort of the forensic history of going back, say, for instance, I'll do this quickly, the Olmecs and porters and stouts. So we're talking thousands of years ago, cacao, a bean that is indigenous to the Yucatan Peninsula. All of a sudden, in my mind, I figure there was probably some homeless Olmec dude walking by a pile of rotting cacao beans that had been rained on, and he went over and sipped, that juice and said, I like to think he became in his own right a billionaire of the time, opening several pubs. But the Olmecs were among the first to taste stouts and porters. And so all of these little items of information and knowledge that come to you because of the beer that you like or that you're making are so damn cool for me. So getting back to the Gin's Hellebrew, when I tasted that, I brewed it first out here at Wicks Brewing, and I must say Ryan Wicks is a friend and has become in his own right quite a brewmaster in his own right, taking over the brewing at his own place, and just a great guy, always very helpful to me, helping me along. I brewed the gin celebrew down there for the first time in 2014. And so since that time, I've realized that, I'm very big into charity and into causes and efforts that, that help people. And why? Because I can. I mean, it's not that I must. It's I in a way, perhaps I do feel it a duty, but I can. And what better, what greater opportunity than to be able to offer somebody a beer and for them to think this tastes great, it's wonderful, I'm having a great beer, I'm enjoying it, and the money that I just paid for this goes to a good cause. So easy to raise money when you're handing over a beer and you're explaining what that's for. And so because of that, up here, we have a couple of efforts and causes that we believe in, among them the search and rescue, local search and rescue, and the kids. Yeah, absolutely. I'm up in the San Bernardino Mountains, and wildfires, just the word, scares the creepus out of all of us. But right about this time of the year, as a matter of fact. And then we also started a scholarship for local kids interested in the arts. It's called Mountain Film Theater Arts and Crafts. We broadened it to crafts because there are community members here in a community crestline that is underserved, and a community replete with hardworking people, honorable people, and so I wanted, for instance, I wanted to have thank you cards made out of recycled paper, and that is a cottage industry. That is something that could be done at home. So I put out the word here and there, and so we do a $250 scholarship for anybody who and it can be a kid in high school who wants to get into film and acting, or to sound, and or it could be a retired person who thinks, what, I would like to do something, make candles, do something. We will put it in our shop here and sell them, and no consignment. It's all for the joy of craft and to move that ahead. And so we've had a lot of response and a lot of love back from the community because of our willingness to be a good neighbor. And so our now beer, I found this beautiful.
Andy, there's a couple things I gotta unpack for people because this is so good.
Sure.
Again, I'm always trying to connect the dots on why the hell we do what it is that we do. And there's a couple things that I want to just acknowledge you on that I think are important. Your ability to take things that I'm truly in love with, and everybody who knows me or watched the show, huge film buffs in our family. And so the fact that you're connecting such a cult classic like Wishmaster and something that is part of your history with then culinary ingredients, the anthropological side of now you're kind of a historian a little bit, and you're tracking the people and ingredient migrations and then connecting to that craft beer. That's why I do this. That's kind of stuff that is so compelling to me, because if you just made a chili beer, there's lots of chili beers. For you, there's a depth of the story that connects all those dots. And then you get to pour it for charity. It literally it checks every box that I could imagine. So I think that is such an important thing for people to really understand how important that is. And so I want to make sure that is very clear. And again, acknowledge you, because that's not a little thing. These don't happen if you're not a very thoughtful person and think beyond just what's in the glass. And we cannot just focus on what's in the glass. Yet, what's in the glass better be damn delicious. So it's not like the gin wine that you had. It's got to be delicious. The brewery itself. I wanted to start with the brewery before we even talk about the beer. It's all about people. And so actually, Donnie, your head brewer, was supposed to be on with us, is unable to be here today. I wanted to give you an opportunity for a moment to acknowledge Donnie and how important it is to have somebody like that to have your back and to deliver on the sometimes crazy ideas that you have.
Absolutely. And Donnie Strodtman is our brewmaster, and we are all gut-wrenched, heart-wrenched. He was contract brewing down the hill, brewing for a restaurant who does their own beer, and had an accident where about 5 gallons of 250-degree water burst out after a hose clamp sort of gave way and scalded the lower extremities from the knees down on both legs. One foot severely burned. He has been back and forth into the hospital, and while going in to just get a checkup, was told that he needed to be readmitted and have more work done. Suffice it to say, it's been a nightmare for Donnie. It has been for us, and let it be known. And of course, craft brewers across the world will know that making beer is a volatile thing. It's a volatile experiment. It is literally pressure felt by us on the figurative level, and then literally the pressure under which that beautiful nectar boils, is fermented, goes through pumps, all of this, and basically playing with chemistry to come up with a beautiful flavor and something you can sit and enjoy chilled. Thinking back that it had to go through a process where it was above boiling, scalding water. And to know that a friend is hurt and down, a man down, is a tough thing for us right now. Of course, as a small business, as a fledgling brewery, it has upended our schedule, no question about it. And we are doing the best we can to move ahead. Out here where I am in California and in the San Bernardino County, we are lucky enough now to be able to take advantage of pouring our beer for those folks who might not have been able to taste it on site by virtue of including food. So we have a taco cart come in Thursdays and Fridays. We barbecue our own burgers on Saturday. Sunday we do basically what I call Lucky 13 Sunday, and that's our way of saying thank you to the community. And basically it's 2 pulled pork sliders, baked beans, potato salad, and a pint for $13. And so it's the rest of the week. So starting today and starting we started at 12 noon. We are doing pizza. We partnered with the pizza place just down the road, Roadhouse Pizza, and as I say, we've had a lot of love from the community, a lot of support, and that means a lot. And a lot of people know Donnie, and they've reached out to him. They've reached out to us, and as I say, these are some of the things that until they happen, well, let's just say that my learning curve is has increased over just these past 2 weeks.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So much of our audience, Andy, are professionals in food and beverage, breweries, restaurants, hospitality. And so I know other brewers that have gone through something very similar. And so I know a lot of the brewers have so much empathy for moments like this because we've seen that and we have friends that have gone through that. So I appreciate you sharing that. And our thoughts are for sure with Donnie so he can get back to doing what he's supposed to be doing, which is making beer. That's and right. Building community through that beer. And that's what I really appreciate about that. And so let's talk about the beer itself. When you and Donnie get together, you're geeking out. You're saying, hey, what's on the docket? What are we interested in? What's that cacao recipe that we want to do? And you guys are kind of telling that story to each other. And then Donnie goes into brewer mode and says, here's the recipe. And you start that development process. So give us a couple beers, maybe. Let's start with one beer that kind of accentuates the journey and your guys' process and what people can expect if they were to walk in, get a slice and a pint. What would that experience be for them? Give us one beer that kind of articulates.
Well, first of all, I would start with the gin cellar brew. That's our flagship brew. And the fact that, say for a 10-barrel batch, we're roasting probably 23 plus pounds of habaneros. There are another 50 limes that are zested, and about 5 to 8 of those are chunked and put into the boil. And of course, as you mentioned, the connection, the Hollywood connection, a lot of people, of course, with the masks now, until I pull it off, one thing I don't do, I don't drink my own beer at work. I know that's almost blasphemy. I wait till my day is done. Sure. We tend to do, we've gotten all of our specialty beers, including the gin cellar brew, out of the way first. We just brewed 2 days ago, we brewed the lager. I call it Trugger, and that Adam came up with that name, Adam Drager, and that was a compound name, essentially tree hugger, and it's totally counterintuitive. I will go off on a tangent momentarily here. We support our local woodsmen getting into the woods and harvesting the overpopulated acres of forest that we have up here. A healthy forest is 50 trees an acre. That keeps the water table stable. It keeps the trees vigorous, full of life, supple in the branches, as opposed to now having 500 an acre. So imagine 500 straws in a glass versus 50.
Yeah,
you can imagine what that does to the water table. And so basically we have 450 standing weeds that are about 200 feet tall. So we want to get our Trugger, lager supports the idea of getting our local woodsmen into the forests and harvesting them, picking 10 trees, not clear cutting, bringing them out, selling it for firewood, mulching it, and shipping it for the local landscapers and nurseries up here. So the Trugger we just brewed the other day, Donnie was in a wheelchair and he was going around, and he got to the point and he said, okay, take the hose off and put it now. And you know, we're doing our whirlpool. Yeah.
That's a brewer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. And it was the day after that he was readmitted to the hospital. So his dedication is much appreciated. And we have a rising star here, Adam Hernandez, also a member of the team, who is the apprentice brewer, and he truly picked up the slack and did wonderfully. And I'll tell you what, we did a 7-barrel batch in my 10-barrel brew house. And you know what, it's always a workout getting that mash in, stirring it, making sure it's not clumpy. There are no biscuits at the bottom of your mash tun. That part actually is a bit of therapy and zen for me, because when I'm doing that, I'm rowing down a river, man. I'm just thinking, and my head's traveling a little bit. We tell those stories, and we talk to, when somebody comes in for a slice and a beer, we'll tell them a little about the history. For instance, as I mentioned to you about Adam Drager with the Wishmaster needing to have his own beer, and then with the Trugger being its own sort of thing and representative of really mountain culture. I ran from 2003, from 2000 to 2003. I ran a logging crew up here, and it was my day work wasn't coming in as sort of as much as it had been, as intensively as it had been, and so I decided to just withdraw for a little bit. Called the agent, said, you know, unless something really cool comes along, leave me alone. And so I was logging for like 3 years. Right up until the old fire in 2003, where I was evacuated, and a lot of friends lost their homes. So, you know, again, you know, but the beautiful thing about mountain community, living up here and now having a little brew pub in a neighborhood, people are all so supportive that it's become a touchstone. We all look at things as if, regardless of your philosophy, of your point of view, politically, when there's a wildfire, we're all family. You know, we all pull together. So we have found a way to do that without the sort of impetus of a fire breathing down our backs. You know, and so that's a beautiful thing about a small community. And so now what a lot of the big corps tend to be the ones who get the contracts for the trees. For instance, with our Trugger, lager, we support, as I mentioned, we support getting our own smaller crews in there to make a living. And so I cannot wait for the day. Right now, we cannot, you know, we have to have our masks on inside. I cannot wait for the day when we have people sitting in what will be sort of, I call it a living room to the place. In the back, behind the walk-in is where all the magic happens, is all of the stainless steel. We will be, there's an adjacent, I think 800 or so square feet that we will turn into sit-down tables area. And the fact that I can then have the community in and sit down and enjoy it is a wonderful thing. And my repeatedly bringing up community, I want the listener, the viewer, to understand one thing. Interestingly enough, sometimes when you go to a little town, you can feel sort of odd man out, and be made to feel that way sometimes. So somebody that was obviously feeling that way came up to the counter. I was working the counter that day, and felt it sort of necessary to say, well, I'm not from here. I'm not from the community, because they must have gone through something somewhere. And I said, you're in our place now. You're in the pub. And if you're in here, you're community, regardless of where you come from. And that's what I want people to understand. When they come into the place, their community, they can sit down at the community table that sits 12. And it's this big old oak slab, weighs about 750 pounds, 500-year-old tree that fell over on the golf course up here. So I believe in harvesting locally and making it, turning it into art, and having people come in and enjoy it. Andy, sorry for rambling, man.
This is, you know what? This is so perfect, because again, this is you as a communicator. You are encompassing so many overlapping storylines and intentions and purpose at the same time, and
it's my brain, man.
I love it. Yeah, you're as crazy as I am and twice as talented. So I appreciate that. Here's the thing that I think is so important for people to kind of recognize in this moment. For me, you are an even better actor than I could have imagined, because there is not a villainous bone in your body, my friend. So
I think there's one or two of those, but you have to really push some buttons to get to them. Yeah.
Let me tell you, wherever you go, you must go borderline method in your process, because you have to take yourself completely out of yourself. And I'm sure that as a younger man and actor, this was not inherent and innate in you as it clearly is now. So, all of that of going through the journey. Yet I really, really appreciate that, because again, you're communicating in a multitude of ways. And that's what I think people in food and beverage and hospitality have the capacity for so much, to bring so much to the conversation, that it's not just the beer. You are telling a story that includes so many people, and I really appreciate that. And Sophie threw up this banner because I think it's so apt. Restaurants, breweries are fundamentally the pillars of both their culture and commerce in their community, and I think it's something that even internally we undervalue, because we're just cooks, we're just brewers, we just make food, we just make beer. Yet what you're doing is trying to elevate that to be the conduit for creating relationships and community, and so I appreciate that. The human capital that you invest in, I think, is important. And you're talking about the community up there in that kind of Lake Arrowhead, Crestline, Highland area. Yes. My family has been embedded in for so long, right? My uncle Larry Cummings has the restaurant, the Grill at Antler's Inn. He is the restaurant guy.
Yes, he is. And he's a wonderful influence, by the way, and has been and very humble. But you can tell his business acumen, his chops. Wow. Any questions? He's always very willing to help and has a keen insight about precisely what you're talking about. You don't have to beat around the bush. He gets right to the point. Yeah, I love that about Larry, and I may say William as well. What a great guy. And William, very affable, very outgoing. Was one of the first people that I met at the grill in Lake Arrowhead, before I met Larry, and even before I met Mitch. Well, just after having met Mitch, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So but you are. Yes.
Yeah, you're in good company up there. Let's just say that the Cummings clan up there has done well, has really built community up there. And so from my younger brother Mitchell slinging sushi and being a part of the scene. Janie, I love that you have kind of the theater and the arts piece and the crafts piece, because that's very much her work. The restaurant, food and beverage with that. So I'm so glad that you've connected with our family up there in a meaningful way, and that they are part of your community, you're part of theirs. So really appreciate that. Andrew, unbelievable conversation. I cannot wait also to come out there and become a part of your community there at Three Marm, to sit down and have a proper pint with you and Donnie would mean the world to me. And so
I
I'm
look
really
I look
grateful
forward
having
to
you.
it, brother. And you are welcome. You and your friends, family, welcome anytime. We'd love to host you and sit you down and make sure that your experience is both culinary and beer wise an excellent one. So thank you so much for the time and for thinking about talking to us. And from all the Three Marm team and Erica Wright, our web admin, with whom you've been in touch.
Yep.
Big hugs, lots of COVID hugs, virtual hugs, and I wish I could send you a virtual beer, brother. But
right.
we look forward to the day when we can pour you one.
Everybody, Andrew Divoff, founder, Three Marm Brewing out in California in the San Bernardino Mountains there. Thank you so much for being on the show, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Jensen, and you too. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, everybody. What an honor for me. Truly somebody that, again, I'm not joking. Our family is so into the film industry. Growing up in Southern California, so many of our friends and family were a part of that industry. I joke about how in the Midwest they have brackets for college football and college basketball. And growing up, we had brackets for the Oscars. And so it means a lot to me to see people like Andy that literally, you may not know his name right off the bat. You see that face and you remember instantly the moment you saw him in a movie or film from the 90s and 2000s for sure. He has one of those recognizable faces. The fact that he's so invested and embedded in the community it means a lot. It's really important. I cannot understate the value of that. And we need more of that in our industry. It cannot just be about what's on the plate. It cannot just be about what's in the glass. There has to be a depth of meaning and purpose and intent in what we do. And Andy really crystallized that. So once again, serious brewing and philanthropy and storytelling with Hollywood celebrity status, not an easy thing to achieve. Once again, this is kind of coming at you with these new series as we go on. Best Served Chilled episode 1. We're focused on, again, those craft brewing pros and getting into their heads, getting in the techniques. We'll be tasting a lot of beer on this channel as well, which I'm very excited to flex my certified Cicerone skills a little bit. During COVID, I haven't had the opportunity to do so as much as I would like to. So we will bring that to you. Tune in to this channel every Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, noon out on the coast, West Coast, and then 1 p.m. here in the mountains. And we're going to have guests like Christopher Johnson from Green Bench on, Alyssa Thorpe from Jagged Mountain, the one and only, for me, truly one of the great brewers and breweries in the country, Jeffrey Stuffings from Jester King will be on as well this month in October. So I appreciate you all as always. I appreciate you for tuning in, and I appreciate Andy for being on. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Cheers.